especially who have been so generous in donating to this tribute. We've collected more than sufficient funds to do everything we need to do, and it's just thanks to the generosity of the folks here today. To start off our festivities, the Whitco Band is going to play the Star Spangled Banner for us. There's a flag up here. We would have been able to see one outside, but it's not here. So if you would stand in honor of our nation, the Whitco Band will play. Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you and we praise you for this occasion in which we can celebrate together history. History of our loved ones, our own history, our own personal history. We thank you, Father, for Doug and Becky and their willingness to give leadership to all of this. We ask, Father, that you would bless the administrators, that you would bless each of the faculty and the staff of the school, present as well as past. And Father, we thank you that we can preserve this history and some of the memories that this history has produced. We ask for your blessing upon this program, upon those that will participate, and we ask that you would receive the glory and the honor for all the dedication and all that you have done through us. In the wonderful name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. It's been a little more than 30 years since Johnny and Vince Mickelson settled in the fertile farmland 7 miles east of Warsaw, along the Pennsylvania Railroad. The Civil War was still a recent and painful memory, but on May 10th of 1866, the town of Pierceton was formed, and they elected the first town council, Adam Simmons, John Moore, and Alexander Daugherty. The new town quickly became a center for agricultural and commercial trade. The sidewalks were installed, spitting of tobacco juice was forbidden, and the town bustled with life. 50 years later, as the state of Indiana celebrated its 100th anniversary, the foundation was laid for the library in Pierceton. In 1923, 2 years after a fire of suspicious origin destroyed the old schoolhouse, a new school was built just south of town on the hill. A few years later, a community building was added, and Pierceton High School was in its prime. That old building's gone now, but the state, the city live on, as do the memories of students and faculty who passed through Pierceton High School and Pierceton School. We're thankful you've joined us today to dedicate the memorial to our old school. The tribute honors the faculty, staff, students, and community leaders of Pierceton who insisted for more than 90 years that the primary purpose of the school was producing well-prepared and productive citizens. It's almost impossible to believe that the tribute was little more than a dream just 1 year ago. The association board had a vague idea of what they wanted. The alumni approved the concept in our meeting. None of us knew the obstacles that lie ahead or the roadblocks that we might encounter. Turns out there were no roadblocks. The tribute was designed and constructed ahead of a schedule that all of us thought at the time was overly optimistic. You responded with remarkable generosity, contributing more than $57,000, which is remarkable, making you the real heroes of the day. The seamless and rapid progress of the tribute was no accident. It came about because of the dedication and commitment of a number of individuals, entities, and groups who made the tribute a priority every time the topic arose. At the forefront of these individuals was Mr. Steve Clayson, Superintendent of Whitco Community Schools. Even before we approached Mr. Clayson with our idea, he was planning some way to get the limestone features off of the old building, and he was thinking about, this place right out here where the road diverges or the lane diverges would be a perfect place for a memorial or a sign of some kind. And he's remained a strong supporter of the project ever since, and his leadership has been absolutely exceptional. Mr. Mike McLean, he's hiding back there, principal of Pierceton Elementary, was also an advocate from the start. When we had a chance to sit down and share with Mr. McLean about the things that we liked about the old school and how we appreciated the fact that it was a place for the community to meet, he was excited about that. He said he would like for this elementary school to be the same thing that old building was. And so we're privileged to have his leadership, and thankful for the fact that he sees the school as a community gathering place, just like the old building. The difficulty and complexity of raising funds for something like this was greatly simplified by Mrs. Susie Light, the Executive Director of the Kosciuszko County Community Foundation. During those times when we were really overwhelmed with the stress of making payments and other rounds of fundraising, Susie would step up beside us quietly and confidently, remind us of our purpose, remind us of the progress that we made. She was part counselor, part pit boss, part mom, and cheerleader. So that uncanny ability to keep us focused on our goal and keep us motivated to reach it. We were introduced to Susie by Mr. Dana Kroll, who is Himes and Kroll here in Pierceton. And Mr. Kroll helped us tremendously, provided pro bono assistance in helping us talk to the people we needed to talk to, getting paperwork done and completed, and helping us get through that approval. And his selfless assistance really saved us a lot of time and allowed us to focus our whole attention on building the tribute. The tribute, the tribute was designed by Adam Wiesner from Barton Co. and Vilma, the same company that designed this building. And Adam spent untold pro bono hours working on the design of the structure that is out there today. We appreciate that. Fetters Construction was the contractor for the tribute, just as they were for the school. The president, Mr. Eric Pierceton, and the project manager, Mrs. Denise Demute, were constantly working with us, helped us to get the thing started and get it finished ahead of schedule. Mrs. Demute always seemed to know exactly where things were every time we called, and so we were never missed a beat. I must say, in the second phase of the project, when we poured the concrete around the tribute structure, Fetters did that before we signed the contract. And then Mr. Patterson gave us initial 60 days to make the payment. That's not good business practice, but it speaks volumes, I think, about their confidence in the alumni of Pierceton, and we appreciate the work that they did. So your generosity, and these remarkable people, smart leaders, creative artists, and skilled craftsmen, put this thing together as a testament to what it's always meant to each of us to be a Pierceton Cub. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge Mrs. Loma Reed. I didn't see Loma. We're supposed to be up here. Loma has been an honorary Pierceton Cub for as long as most of us can remember. And her, she was always behind the scenes as Dick was doing whatever he was doing at the school here and then later at Whitco. And Loma's life has always represented the dignity and grace that I think a lot of us associate with the school, and we're really pleased you're here with us today. Now I'd like to introduce Joan Hosteller. Joan has attended Pierceton High School and then was later graduated from Whitco in 1979. She's an avid student of history, particularly the history of Pierceton and the town. She's a co-founder and co-owner of Heritage Photo Research Services, a historic research and photograph archives management company in Indianapolis. We've asked Joan to share some of the details of the history of Pierceton.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's good to be here, and I feel kind of silly talking about the history of the Pierceton School because the best stories are all the ones that you still have, the memories that you have of the place. But we have to have a timeline and we have to have the dates to understand our history. And it's a perfect year to be doing that at the 150th anniversary of the incorporation of Pierceton. And Pierceton is much older than that, going back to the 1850s, but we celebrate this year. So, as all of you know, as generations of Piercetonians, is that what we're called, have gone to school here on the hill, dating back to the 1870s. Before that, there were a number of small schools around, and of course we have the township schools every couple miles. But in 1871, they built a large, for the time, two-story brick building that was right up on the hill where the 1923 school was. So there are old photographs of that you can see, and for those of you who remember Ducky Long, who documented the town, he went and photographed inside and outside of the school during an alumni event, probably in the 19-teens. So we're fortunate to have those to see what that school looked like. But unfortunately, as time went on, the school that had been constructed for $10,000 was overcrowded as more people were coming into town, and they consolidated more schools that served the community well for about 50 years, but in about the 1910s, they realized it was too small. And reading the old newspapers about the history, there was lots of controversy going on. You can read between the lines. There were people who wanted new schools. There were people who said, no, we don't want to spend our tax money on another school. We can make this one go. Finally, in 1919, the superintendent was writing these impassioned pleas to the community. You have to do something. You have to get a new school here because we're going to lose our commission for the school, so we won't be able to have qualified teachers, and students will have to test to get into colleges. So they were fighting for this. The trustee was trying to get something to happen. Finally, in 1921, the State Board of Health condemned the building, actually saying that it was unfit and unsanitary for our children. And so a lot of the classes, even the teens, had to go other places, and they banned off certain rooms. So they went into the Methodist church basement, had classes there. So they were considering, as early as 1915, what are we going to do? Where are we going to have this new school? And they were looking at different sites across the town. Trustee Archie Minzy, I know there were many Minzy family members still around, he really wanted separate elementary and junior high and high school buildings. He really liked a site on the north side where Beth and Phil Flynn built their house, and where I think Anna and Brad Bailey still live in that house. I may be out of times, but anyway, they lived there for a while. So that was a site for consideration. The other site they considered was just west of the central area downtown, so an area between Church and Market Street and 3rd and 4th Street. I imagine they were talking about where the old laundromat was on Market Street. That was an area, they only had to buy 4 houses and tear them down. Anyway, they were fighting, there were lots of letters coming back and forth. Finally, someone kind of took it upon themselves, we think, this has not really been formalized, but finally on the wee hours of June 22nd, or June 12, 1921, an arsonist came to the school. They found oil cans and kerosene cans by the doorway, but in the wee hours of the morning, it burnt to the ground. So the decision was made, we have to do it, we have to do it now, and they decided to do it right there on that 5-acre site. But if anyone knows more about this arsonist, there were whispers and rumors, people still talk about it. Even a few years ago, Mary Ellen Graveless, the daughter of Dora Summy, said, you know, my mom was the music teacher, and they came to her before that weekend and said, you need to take your piano home. So she got her piano out. So whoever this mysterious, advocate for a new school, they got it done. So for 2 years, they were working on getting this school built. And so students had to go into temporary places. I remember when I worked in the Pierceton library in junior high and high school, and Howard Mincy came in to me and recalled how he had first and second grade in the basement of the Pierceton library. Other classes were across the street at Lifers, where R&R Body Shop was later. Some went to school in the Guy building, which I think is where just north of the old Pierceton State Bank, where Roberta's daughter is. They were also in the Oddfellows Hall and the Ashley building, and as I said, in the library basement. Basketball games were moved to a livery stable, so there was still a lot of pride, but it must have been very hard for the administration to have these classes all over the place. But they had to deal with it, and they hired Griffith and Goodrich Fort Wayne architects who were known for designing schools. They designed the first school not really knowing what the budget was, and the price kept coming down from $200,000 to $75,000. So they designed a 2-story building with columns. Well, of course, we all know that never came to be, but it looks to me from these architectural magazines that they built that basic building without the columns and without the second floor. They also had a dream. Pierceton had always wanted a community building. And so they had a dream for a shared gymnasium and community building, but they didn't have the funds for that until a few years later. So red tape and politics and squabbling delayed it for a little while, but by 1923 it was underway, and they even had incentives for building contractor Noah France of Silver Lake to get it finished quickly, and he moved his family here just to get it done. So the hill was slightly flattened. It's not as high as it was in the old school, and it was finally finished on a frigid day in January 1924 when all the students marched with their books and they had all new desks and they finally were in their new school. So the community hall and gym was connected, as we all can still see it in our mind's eye, down a ramp from the school, and it was really a place of pride. I talked to Charlie Collier about this a few years, and he recalled how he would climb under the building as they were building it, and everyone was very excited to have this come with a stage even. So it was finished in 1929. As we can all see it, it had the stage. It had a basement at that point that was full of the agriculture classes, mechanical classes. The cafeteria wasn't down there at first. The cafeteria, and some of you remember this, the cafeteria was where some of us remember the band room to the left of the stage. They eventually moved that downstairs. And then when the baby boomers came along in the late 1940s and 50s, they were running out of space. So they added 6 more rooms to the west of the building and more administration space at that time. But that was only a temporary fix because the population kept growing and they just were out of space. What happened at this time, and all of you can probably remember, we've had a lot of controversy going on over our schools through the years. The state consolidation regulations said that you couldn't have as many small schools. So in the 1960s, we started looking at consolidating, and as you all know, the last class in Whitcoe High School, or Pierceton High School, was 1971, and from there on, the high school students from Pierceton went to Whitcoe High School. Pierceton School underwent a major remodeling at that time, and to me this is one of the saddest things. I loved that old gymnasium with the raised bleachers and playing under there and all the memories we had there, but they simplified that, took all that out. They added the U-shaped drive-up, and they added the pod rooms, as we called them, where it was an open concept. We could go from room to room, and eventually they added it on again in the 1980s and 90s. In 1993, the middle school was built in Larwell, and this became just the Pierceton Elementary School. So, flash forward to about 2010, our school board had the hard decision of looking at our facilities and realized we had a dwindling population, we had a bigger building, we had it spread out over many additions, and so they made the hard decision to build a new school and to raise the old one. So many of us have been gathering around, taking photos of the school, taking documentary video of it, so it's very, very well documented. And finally, the wrecking ball came in June of 2015, and we saw the school go down. So as I think of this, I think progress can be very bittersweet. But I think of all the happy memories that we have of that school and all the happy memories that kids here will have. I remember Howard Menzies said, I remember it like it was yesterday, walking in to that new 1923 Pierceton school. I thought he was ancient. Anyway, I thought of the kids in the video coming into this school, and they have that very same feeling. So it's really not the walls or the materials, so they will have friends and memories. They're getting their interest in music and art and math and history and whatever. And so it just goes on. I think we're very lucky to still have this school in Pierceton, and I think we'll see many, many more successful years here. But I can't help but do a commercial at the end here. I think it lives on in many of your attics and shoeboxes because there are a lot more photographs documenting this space. For example, people keep asking us for photos of the concession stand behind and underneath the bleachers. We cannot find a single photograph of that. We can't find a good interior of the gymnasium that show the bleachers. So keep digging. We're still continuing the Whitco Community Digital Image Project. We'll be scanning back here. And I've got to credit a lot of our funders to the Kosciuszko County Community Foundation, gave us the seed money. We have over 8,000 photographs of the Whitco community now, and I think that's just a drop in the bucket. So let's keep these memories alive and celebrate Pierceton School and Pierceton's bicentennial. Thank you.
Well, I feel humbled to address these individuals here as we dedicate this memorial tribute to Pierceton. The legacy over the years has been something crazy here. I think it's amazing how God also puts things into your life just when you're getting ready to speak to people about something. Last Memorial Day weekend, my mom and I and family were out driving around, and we happened by our old school. And my mom made the statement, well, that's all that's left of our old school, just that arch on the corner. Oh man, that hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, I quickly, of course, gathered myself and said, Mom, that's not true. That's all that's left of the building, but that's not all that's left of what went on. It's the people that we have to think of. It's the lives that are intertwined because they were part of that structure. And that's what's so important when we think of Pierceton and we think of Pierceton High School. This tribute is a reminder of that. The building is gone, but the influence lives on in the people of Pierceton through eternity. When I was first asked to speak, one of the things that was said is, well, the last time you talked to us, and you remember that time wasn't near as much fun. That was when I was like, oh, we're going to tear down the building. Just what I wanted to say. I said I didn't want to lose this. So what is this? Well, this is the people and the principles and the practices that have been the hallmark of Pierceton and its alumni. The monument stands as a reminder of those people, principles, and practices. Pierceton alumni are known for hard work, doing what's right even when it's not popular, being successful, and belonging to a greater community, but without forgetting their roots. This tribute is to all those that have been through the halls of Pierceton over the years. You heard from Mrs. Hostetler the history of this institution. I learned a lot, and I've read some of those records, so that's pretty cool. We want to remind all of those entering this new facility, however, things don't change. The principles and practices are still the same, just because the building. After all, we're Pierceton. Pierceton is community. We know each other, and we care about each other. Pierceton is legacy. We have many great people that have entered the halls of Pierceton, and most have never been recognized for their accomplishments. I want you to stop and think of all the farmers, all the factory and retail workers, all the moms that raised a family, all the professionals that have walked the halls of Pierceton. Those are our unsung heroes. Pierceton alumni are the foundation that lets the next generation grow and be successful in their own right. Pierceton is achievement. While the definitions of achievement change over the years and the state tries to put their own on us, Pierceton folks don't. They simply get the job done, and they get the job done with quality. Pierceton is about growing our community one student at a time. I'll bet when you think about it, you can think back when you were in school about someone who cared for you. Because Pierceton is all about caring. It could have been a family member, it could have been a teacher, it could have been a classmate, maybe some that you're still tight with today. But the caring nature of Pierceton is why when a few years ago I was asked to come up with some slogan for the school, I said, small enough to care. That's what we're about. Pierceton is about impacting the area around us. Many of you have left the area to be part of a larger community, like I mentioned earlier. It's important that our students and parents realize that whether they stay here as part of the Pierceton community, or whether they move away and become part of something else, Pierceton is unique, and Pierceton is something that they'll always have as their root. Pierceton is something that just doesn't happen in our world today. And that's what I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose that thing which makes Pierceton Pierceton. Pierceton alumni have chose to be successful. They've chose to meet challenges. And they've chose to work through those challenges. The other thing that they've done is they've chose to enjoy life and laugh often. Those choices are the endearing legacy to what this tribute's really all about. So as you drive past, or you look at photos that remind you of the people, principles, and practices you gained as part of Pierceton, think of the legacy that you created. You're the ones that did that. This structure is here today, and it's all about your legacy and your impact on our future. Thank you very much.
Alumni Association, we join you in presenting the tribute to the community, hoping that it will continue to engender the kind of things that you talked about today. And now it's your turn to participate. You have to envision that you're outside around the tribute. The weather is just perfect. The birds are being cut and they're floating up in the air, and we're enjoying that. I think you need to be careful about going out there today because there's holes in the ground and it's muddy. So be careful about that, but come back another time and